Hey everyone, so I know I haven't been making videos in a really long time, but I'm back to share with you this coloring tutorial. I'm going to be using my own OC Marseille as demonstration. This particular drawing is going to be used as a t-shirt design in the near future, so if you want to know more about that, stick to the end. But right now I'm just going to finish up this sketch and ink it off camera for y'all. So first important step, this is pretty much integral. It is erasing. What I'm using right now to erase is a Mars plastic eraser. Pretty much just a white eraser. Black erasers work really well too. If you have any kind of smudging going on with graphite, it is going to show up in your coloring. So it's important that you get all of that out there before you go in with colors. Primarily, we're going to be using Faber-Castell colored pencils. These are my personal favorite just because they are so soft and so easy to blend and just to work with in general. So I highly recommend for beginners. Secondarily, I'm going to be using prismacolor colored pencils. These are These are very well known and quite respected in art communities, and rightfully so, probably because they are so vibrant, which is exactly what I need for this piece. And just to give y'all a heads up, I used Pilot Precise pens for all of the inking in this drawing, and I went ahead and used those to ink in some stars on Marseille's face. So next thing you're going to need is probably a sharpener. And I'm just using some old wooden one that I have. It works really well for me, and really whatever works well for you is great. The first color that I'm going to be using is this light creamy beige, and I'm going to be using it as a base for Marseille's skin tone. He in particular is probably like a medium to light brown, but it's important that I have a base first before I lay down those browns. So I started to color in his face with this shade, but I pretty quickly changed my mind and that I wanted to have a ring of light around his face that would be a different color. So I'm just going to erase what I put down and start over, and I'm just going to leave a little tiny gap, a little sliver of skin just to reserve that for a different color later on. So I'm starting off a little bit off the edge of his face and working that in all over. I really just want a smooth color, pretty much a transition shade, which I'll talk about in a second. And right here I did have a little smudge of graphite, so I went ahead and erased that before I continued. I'm just coloring all that in very lightly, very evenly. I'm not really adding much pressure. This is just to give me a smooth base to work with. It's half about the color and half about the consistency that I'm giving the paper. I want something very smooth and soft. So the first color that I'm going in to create his skin tone is this kind of yellow tone brown, which is going to be pretty important with these colors, which are pinks and purples I'm going to be using for his eyeshadow. He's going to be wearing eyeshadow today.
Please ignore my dusty ass hair. This is my first time using an overhead camera angle. I hate everything.
I'm starting off with the lighter pink color, and I'm going to be using it for the transition shade for his eyeshadow. If you're someone like me who is really interested in makeup, you can really bring that knowledge to coloring. So what I'm doing here is putting down a base shade, and it's pretty much a transition shade. This color is not going to be the actual color of his eyeshadow. I'm just using it to help create a blend that I'm going to need later on and to transition his eyeshadow into his skin color. I'm kind of avoiding his actual eyelid so that there can be kind of a highlight on his lid. When you draw realistically, you have to imply certain things, or at least I like to do that. So by me avoiding the eyelid is not saying that there's no color on the eyelid, but it is implying that light is hitting it there, and therefore that much color isn't really going to show up. So right now I am laying down the local color, which is this purpley tone for the eyeshadow. Again, if you're someone who is interested in makeup, you can really bring that knowledge to not only makeup looks on your drawings, but with your drawings in general. The whole concept of blending and having a light hand and having base colors, transition shades, all of that can really be useful in something like this. So I'm just continuing to use that lighter pink to blend out the eyeshadow, and I'm gonna go back and forth with the true colors of the eyeshadow, which are the very hot pinks and the very bright purples, and I'm just going in to really create that look. So now that we've pretty much got the eyeshadow down, we're gonna get ready to blend that in with the rest of his skin. It's pretty much just a golden brown with a lot of yellow tones, and it's very beautiful. I love this tone for him. And I'm just going to blend that in with the light pink that I had laid out as his transition shade for his eye look, just so that it's seamless and blends in and doesn't just look like I just smacked in some color. And I'm going to start blending that out to the rest of his face to start building the color of his skin. I decided to put in some gray just to hint at some baby hairs and some cast shadow and everything. And right here I am applying the light brown to his hairline, just so that when I actually do the hair, there's not this separation between the skin on his face and the skin on his scalp, and that it actually looks like there's hair coming out from the top of his head instead of him just like wearing like a really bad Party City wig or something. And now I am finally getting into the eyebrow hairs. I'm just very lightly mapping out how I want his eyebrows to look and just creating shape for them. I really value softness in a portrait, so with hairs, such as with the eyebrows, I don't necessarily try to make it look like a bunch of individual hairs. I like to imply that it's hairs without actually making it look explicitly like hairs, if that makes sense. So right here I'm using a very dark brown to start to really get the color in and to really start implying the eyebrow texture. And I'm going back and forth between the dark tones and the lighter tones, just because it makes it a little bit softer when it gets to more sparse hairs. So instead of using dark colors but lightly, I'm going to use light colors but with pressure. It tends to work a little better for me when I want to get this look, but I can see it working the other way too. So now I'm just pretty much finishing up the forehead and creating depth and really making the highlight on his forehead pop by making everything around it darker. And I'm doing this really lightly and very gradually, just so that there's no harsh lines anywhere and it doesn't look like he's really wearing anything on the skin. I really want it to look like skin for this particular piece. There are ways to make makeup look like makeup, but I won't be demonstrating that for this video. And here I am just darkening up, or maybe not darkening up, I am making the colors in the eyeshadow a little bit more vibrant, because as I add more colors surrounding the eyes, it tends to make the eyes look a little bit more dull, and I don't want that to happen, so I am reapplying color just so that it doesn't fall flat in comparison to the skin. And when you're coloring, just like in general, mostly with, you know, like very smooth surfaces such as skin, I like to color in tight circular motions. I know that on screen it looks like I'm coloring just straight up and down, but I'm not. I am coloring in very tight, very wispy circular motions, kind of like if you're like whisking eggs. That's pretty much the motion that I'm using, just very, very tight. And that really helps to get a smooth, even finish, as opposed to going up and down, which can, you know, leave a texture that's kind of like crusty. Like, it's like not crusty, but it's pretty crusty. And if that's what you're going for, that's totally cool. But if you're someone like me who wants like a very smooth, even finish, I recommend coloring in a circular motion. And it does not have to be fast. It can be slow. It really just depends on what you're trying to do in that particular moment. So right here, I'm using that slightly darker brown to build up shadows around the eyes. Not to make them appear sunken in, but to just give the definition of his nose and his nose bridge. And you see me going back and forth between different kinds of colors. I go back and forth between browns and pinks and sometimes grays. And this is just to make everything come together and to give life to the face. And, you know, not make it so flat, because nobody just has one color in their face. You know, skin tone is made up of many different colors, because that's how pigment works. And now I'm starting to shade the nose, and I'm just using the same light brown that I was using before at the beginning, just to map out where I want those shadows to be and how I want his nose to be formed. And here I'm using the darker brown to really put like a staple on the shadows of his nose and to give the true shape of it. And right here, this is actually very important for my personal style, is I'm bringing out this orange. It's not necessary, at least for Maceo in particular. I really like to bring this particular shade into my portraits because I find that it really softens everything up. I really like a soft finish in my work. If this isn't something that you want to do, it's totally fine. It doesn't really make a big noticeable difference. But it is a difference that I can see and appreciate in my own personal work. And if it's something that you want to try, please do. It's really fun, and like it's kind of like a fun little trick. Because people don't really expect there to be much orange in, you know, skin tone, but no, there totally is. And you can bring that out if you want to. Again, not necessary, but definitely something very fun. And in this drawing, you can see me going basically from the top of the face to the bottom of the face, and this is not necessary to do, but I personally like to do it because, you know, if I were to go from one part of the face to the complete opposite side of the face, like if I were to go from the eyes to the chin, then I would have to meet somewhere in the middle of that, and that can be done very seamlessly, and it can look great, but it is a little bit more stressful to have to meet the energy from two different places of the paper, if that makes sense. So it works best for me to just try to get from point A to point B in one fluid motion, rather than to jump from A to B and then meet somewhere in the middle. So I'm just working a little bit more on the nose, and I use a darker brown, my darker brown, to get in these shadows inside of his nose. I've seen a lot of people use very dark colors, particularly black, and that's totally fine. Sometimes things are absolutely black, but I've noticed that most of the time, at least for the kind of stuff that I do, things are very rarely black, you know? It can be like a dark brown or a dark purple, a dark blue, dark green, but it's more of a personal stylistic choice. You can totally use black if you choose. I just feel like a lot of the time black can be a little bit too much, especially for, you know, nostrils, especially like for a facial expression like this where the nostrils are more exposed. It can be a little bit too much black. It's a little bit too stark and too in your face and too high contrast from everything else. That can be a good technique to have, but for this particular piece and this particular style, it wasn't the best choice for me personally. So I did just go in with a lighter brown just to make the whole thing tie together and to just be one soft image. And I just want to say that one of the keys to doing color portraits, whether if it's with crayons or colored pencils or paint, pastels, anything, a lot of the time to get like a color that you want, it really does take some patience. With this piece in particular, there were some things that I was not annoyed with, but things that I found just slightly daunting. Like, I didn't like really want to try to shade the nose or anything, because not that it was hard, but it definitely requires a little bit more concentration and a little bit more of understanding from your reference. You really have to try to understand what exactly you're looking at so that you can replicate it in a way that you like. So if you're struggling with colors and finding the right colors, that's totally fine. What matters is that you're kind to yourself in the process and you're allowing yourself to really think. And if you need to take a break, go ahead and take a break. And if you need to really look at something, like if you really need to study your reference photo or your model, if you're using from imagination and you really need to look inside your head, even if it's like for hours, just go ahead and do that. Go ahead and concentrate on what you need to concentrate on. Drawing is not only the drawing part. A lot of it is really understanding what you're supposed to be drawing and what you want to create. If the whole process of drawing was just drawing, that would be so weird. Don't beat yourself up if everything is not going exactly the way you want it to go, because honestly, if things went exactly the way that we wanted it to go every single time, that's the worst. Alright, so right now you can see me starting to work on the lips. I'm using the same light pink that I used as the base color for the eyeshadow and the same color that I used hints of throughout the skin. And I'm just using this to again map out the shape of the lips. I'm not really trying to add any value here, just really trying to map out lip shape and to block out where the highlights are gonna go. So by blocking out where the highlights are going, I'm just avoiding that area with the color. I'm just leaving it blank. And I'm using a darker pink to start adding those values. I am going to attempt to make the lips a little bit more orange. I think they look really charming and really beautiful. So right here you can see that I'm using a very, very vibrant, very hot orange. And yeah, so hopefully it doesn't look crazy at the end. I'm just trying to use this color very sparingly because it is very vibrant. It's extremely noticeable if you go overboard with it. So I'm just using it very sparingly, very lightly in areas that I need it. Okay, so I'm taking a break from the lips for now, and I'm going to start working on that different color highlight around the face. And this white is actually necessary because what white does underneath the pigment is inherently soften the color. So I'm starting off with a lighter teal blue to map out where I want the blues to be and how I want them to work with the brown skin. One of the struggles that I had with this particular element of the drawing was blending those blues into the brown. If you overwork it even just a little bit, it can immediately get muddy and it doesn't read as a highlight. It reads as something else. Blending the blue with the brown, I am using a light orange to do this because I felt like exclusive brown would be way too much. And I'm going back into the lips using this magenta here to really help all of the colors pop. I'm using a brown to really get my darks. I'm avoiding black for the lips because I really don't believe that it's necessary for this. So finishing up the lips, I am now working on the bottom of the face at the chin, and this part wasn't really something that I had to really focus on too much because it was pretty straightforward for me, kind of like with the forehead. And right here I am trying to blend the lips into the rest of the skin tone because the lips are a lot more orange than the skin on his face, and I don't want it to look like he's really like wearing lipstick, so I'm really trying to blend these together and to make it look like a natural thing. Okay, so I finally finished the face, and off camera I went ahead and colored in the hair. I wasn't too focused on the hair because I really wanted to focus on the face, and overall I didn't want it to be extremely like realistic because in the end this is going to be digitalized, and so I really wanted it to be simple and very easy to read. So something for Marcelo which is really important and detrimental to him are his beauty marks.
Watching haters wonder why can't be no goddamn game, half-tied thicky, all she wanna do is bang, got her hair done, front braids, now she ASAP, you know so insensitive, she asking why you say that, and I'm chillin', real nigga feelin', rich kid asshole, paint me as a villain, still spitting that cash flow.
Hello everyone! I know I have never shown my face on this channel before, but I felt like I should materialize today just to not only thank you for watching this video, but for all of the support that I've gotten regarding this project. It wasn't easy, and the making of this video wasn't easy, but I've had so much great feedback about the art and about, you know, the tutorial. I've had a lot of struggles on both sides, but I'm so happy that I got both of them out. If you don't know about this project that I'm referring to, basically, someone who is very close to me, he's my cousin, was so kind enough to reach out to me to help him out with something that he's been wanting to do on his channel for a really long time, and that is the production of t-shirts. The drawing that you saw today is going to be one of 3 from me, and what these designs are going to be supporting are his lo-fi channel, as well as me as the artist behind these 3 designs. So if you want to stay up to date on this project, you can follow me on Instagram at badbadjudy, and please go over to the Wubba Lubba Lo-Fi channel. He is so talented and so creative, so it was such an honor that he reached out to me. And just because I'm a little sneaker, I went and snuck in some of his mixes into the background of this video. So if you liked the music that you heard today, check out the channel, because everybody loves lo-fi. Everybody loves lo-fi, and if you don't, I don't love you. If you liked the drawing tutorial, please give me a thumbs up. It would let me know that you like this kind of content. And if there's anything else that you want to see from me, go ahead and comment that below, and I'll try my best to get around to it. And if you enjoy my OC, and if you then you can check out more things about him on my Instagram. He's a really cool character, and I really like him. Everybody likes him. Okay, everybody likes him. All of my socials and the Wubba Lubba Lo-Fi channel will be in the description if you want to stay up to date. Yeah, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. I hope everyone has a good day or night, and yeah. Bye.